Welcome back to the neighborhood, boys and girls. Our next guest is Raki Desai from Vantage Real Estate. Raki, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you so much for coming in. We always talk about personal stuff first. So
Let's do it.
we get a little bit into the pre-real estate version of things, somewhere in between high school and current Raki. How did you get to where you are? Give us a little bit of your personal journey and where you came from.
Oh, it's been a journey, that's for sure.
That's awesome.
I've kind of just been a lot of different places before I landed here in real estate. So I went to school for education. I used to be a teacher, elementary school. Did that for a few years. Went from there into healthcare, which I loved and, did for quite some time. And then eventually transitioned out and did real estate.
Nice.
I think, the real estate, I always had the interest and the flexibility. I started a family, have kids. It just all worked out really well timing-wise. So here I am. And then I still teach part-time.
Okay.
But I teach at university.
Okay.
I teach language at university. And I also do, when I can, which is not very often anymore, some interpreting.
Nice.
For,
That's
courts
awesome.
and hospitals.
People always have the greatest stories. It's always you see realtors and you're like, oh, this is what they do, and then you talk to them like, oh yeah, I did this. Last week there was a guy who's like, oh, I was a law enforcement officer. I was like, nah, I never knew that. I've known you for so long. I never knew how it was.
The backgrounds are very varied.
Yeah.
In real estate.
So you're still an adjunct professor? Is that what it is?
Correct.
Nice. In a previous lifetime, I was a teacher before 20 years ago, before I got into the business, and that's kind of been my fallback retirement plan is to get my master's degree and do some adjunct teaching to keep me young.
I do enjoy teaching. Yeah.
I
like the interaction.
I like the
with
interaction.
The students, and it just keeps you young. It just keeps you they're fun.
Yeah. I liked high school kids, and I liked really, really young kids. I didn't really like the middle school kids because they were like smart asses, and they were like smart enough to know how to talk.
Well, my daughter
back to
just
you.
started middle school, so I know what you're talking about.
Smart enough to know how to talk back to you, but they also knew that like you didn't intimidate them because they knew you couldn't do anything to them. Like real small kids are like, oh, this guy's a big monster. He'll smash me.
I was always with the littles. I did second and fourth grade.
Okay.
When I taught, I never did middle or high school.
And now you're at college.
And then I just went straight to college.
Okay, that's awesome.
I skipped the middle and high school years.
Awesome. And how long have you been officially licensed for real estate?
About 5 years.
Okay.
Yep. About 5 years.
And full time, almost the whole 5 years.
No.
Okay.
I actually was part time for most of it up until a few years ago because, like I said, I do have younger children. So, it was nice. I had that flexibility to be able to work and start building my real estate career, but also take care of my kids. Now they're a little bit older. We've had some changes, so I'm able to do this full time.
Nice.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
You're with Vantage, and that's like a different opportunity than most places because they were primarily a commercial place and now have gotten into residential, which is the opposite of what most places are. Most places are highly residential and a little bit of commercial that's going on. So what's the advantage? What's the lure for you as far as that goes with the both sides of it, commercial and residential?
I'd say that's it's been the best of both worlds. So because we have the commercial side, we have the residential side, there's been so much flow between the two. For example, I have somebody recently who was looking for houses, then said, hey, maybe we'll build, so we need land. Well, great. Let me introduce you to my commercial team that can help you find the land. Or, on the commercial side, when they're doing deals and they've either just sold somebody a business or a lease or whatnot, and they're like, oh, well, by the way, we need to move, so we're going to have to rent something, or we need to sell our house, we need to buy a house, and then that, flows over to us. So that dynamic is actually really unique and really nice.
Now, with New Jersey legalizing marijuana and all that stuff, has there been an influx of relocating businesses or people coming from outside to open up a business in
so
Jersey?
We get a lot of calls for dispensaries and opening up a dispensary. I think the problem is, and it's not, there's a lot of red tape that you need to cross before you get to the point of let me call the real estate company and start looking for space. There's a lot of red tape, and I don't think everybody fully is aware.
They think like, oh, this is the Wild Wild West. Let me go open up a pot shop.
Well, yeah, I have the finances, I have the partners, I have the time, I have this and that. I can go do this, but you can't, right? There's so many caveats to opening up one of those businesses. There's the licensures, there's like such a limit on them, the restrictions of where you can open them and how far it can be from homes and a school and this and that. So like all these pieces combined, there's a lot of pieces that go into it.
Nice.
The good thing is we do have, people in our office that are very, very well versed in all the laws and all those restrictions. So they've been very helpful to people, and helpful in making some people it's not going to work. Where you want to open it it's not going to be able to be done.
Have you had the opportunity to work on any clients with that, or?
I have had the opportunity of working with one.
Okay.
With somebody on the commercial side, more like it was like an introduction, and then I wanted to be a part of the process just to learn.
Sure.
And I did. I learned a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what are you? Well, so we talked about the past. Now let's talk a little bit about the future. Let's go 2024 September area. 2 years from now, what are some of the goals? What are some of your check boxes that you have on your vision board? What do you think you're going to accomplish, or what are some things you want to accomplish in the next 2 years?
Oh yeah, so definitely, within Vantage, residential is newer.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Vantage is very well known for their commercial, their property management, and now we have the residential. So my goal is definitely to build the residential to that where when people hear Vantage, it's not just Vantage commercial.
Right.
Oh, you mean Vantage? They do residential, commercial, everything, the whole. So that's definitely a big goal of mine and Lior's, and the company vision is to make residential a lot bigger.
Sure.
Build portfolios. We were talking earlier, just kind of pull in, combine our commercial world with ours, pull in investors and things like that.
It's funny that you said I met Lior once through Andrew, and I had seen his name a million times on signs, but I didn't really. I only really rented commercial stuff like when I was 18 years old a couple different times, and then like once, but it was kind of handed to me through the company. I wasn't really looking for commercial stuff. And then when I was looking to open up here, I was working with Brian Lafferty, and I went, and he was like, there's a bunch of places, go drive through and see if you like anything. And I kept looking, I'm like, who is this Lior dude? His name is on all everywhere. These signs. And then when Andrew came to me, he's like, hey, I'm working with Lior. I'm like, I want to meet Lior because I've seen his name on all these signs. I want to see. It was interesting to say.
People say that to me about Vantage in general, right? Because they'll ask me, oh, where do you work? And I'm like, oh, I work with Vantage. We're a boutique firm. And they're like, oh, okay. And then without fail, the next time I see them, I run into them. They're like, ever since you told me you worked at Vantage, I see their signs everywhere. The signs stand out now because you told me you work there. So
that's awesome.
It's very, very similar.
Now, have you had the opportunity to mentor any new agents? Do you see yourself as like a team leader with other salespeople under them or anything like that?
Yeah, so not yet. Right now, the residential team is myself and Heather. I think you've met Heather at some events. So her and I, and she's also seasoned. So,
sure.
It's great. Her and I bounce off of each other. We can go to each other with, questions, needs, anything like that. In terms of mentoring, Lior and I talk, as we want to grow the residential team, I'm more than happy to take on some type of role where, not necessarily like a team lead. Like I know all the bigger companies have like the different teams with the team lead. I don't know that it would look like that. It would just be more like a mentorship role of helping them adjust to Vantage, if they're newer, to the whole residential real estate world.
Okay. And if someone out there is watching this, maybe it's a realtor from another company or someone who's thinking about getting into real estate, what do you think some of the big selling points are for you of working at Vantage? Like,
sure.
What would you...
Super easy answer. The culture. Vantage's culture is really not like anything I've seen any other place. It truly is like a very family-like environment. And when I say that, I mean, right, nothing's perfect every day as it is in a real family,
Right.
But it's just, it's very supportive. Everybody's there for each other when you actually need it. And then on top of that, you know, I think for a real estate agent perspective, keep in mind, you know, the fact that we have that huge commercial side
Right.
is very unique.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you'll have, oh, you know, where do you get leads from? And you're always trying to generate leads for listings or, you know, buyers, but we have that in-house.
Right.
We have that in-house. And then the other big thing that we have that's just kind of part of the company, you know, it's not something extra, is in-house marketing.
Right.
You know, and
You have somebody like Andrew that runs around and does a bunch of
right.
events
And we have Andrew, who also he's not a broker. He's just there simply to generate business for the brokers.
Yeah,
you know,
support you guys.
For every company, the property management, commercial, and then the residential. And then Sam, you know, our marketing person, she's fantastic, and she's in-house. Like for me, Sam, I turn around, Sam's there, I'm like, hey Sam, can you post this video, or, you know, can you
Right.
can you get these magnets? I think, you know, they're a great idea. And she's like on it. So, you know, all of that stuff is very, very unique. So yeah, if you're watching and you're looking for a new home, reach out to Jim. He can put you in touch with me, or, you know, get in touch with me.
Nice.
Sure.
And we were talking a little bit before the interview. Well, let's talk about if there's someone out there that's watching and they were like, well, I was going to buy a house, but now interest rates are 6.5. So I think I'm going to hold off and wait. I know what I would say, but what would your advice be to someone who says, I'm gonna hang on the sidelines until I see what goes on with the market?
So my first response to that is always, rates are still historically low. And, you know, with where we are in the rental market, because the rental market is very high, really, you're better off buying now at this rate, and then keeping an eye on the market and refinancing when the rates drop, which they will eventually. You know what I mean? So we don't have a crystal ball. We can't say in 6 months it's going to drop. You can refinance then, but I still think you're better off taking that chance as opposed to overpaying for rent. And, you know, when you buy something, you own it. It's equity.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of people that go back and forth, and one of the people that I like the most in the whatever you call it, business self-help, is Grant Cardone. And the only thing I don't agree with is he says never buy, always rent. And I'm just like, that's the dumbest. I can't imagine why you would think that. But when you like you were saying, if you're going to pay $2,500 for rent on a house, you're talking about, you know, a ridiculous amount of money for $30,000 for the year that's gone, that's paying somebody else's mortgage down to go through, you know? So if you do that for 2 years, you just wasted $60,000 for nothing.
Well, and you know, like we write leases, right? And then like in our rental lease, I don't know if you've ever seen one, you know, it's the lump sum. And so some of these, you look at them and you're like, okay, so over 2 years, you're paying, you know, $2,000 a month. If you do the math, you're looking at almost $50,000.
$48,000.
That gave you a roof over your head, which is wonderful. But it's also, right, you could have taken the chance, bought the house, and that's $50,000, almost $50,000 you would have put into equity into your home.
Sure. Or the other way around, if you spent $50,000 on your mortgage, you know, whatever, $20,000 of it is taxes, that's a tax write-off. $30,000.
Oh yeah.
You know, principal, principal's not a pay down, but interest is another tax write-off. So it's such a benefit. I don't know.
I agree.
I feel like a salesperson when I say it, so I try not to push it, because I'm like, man, do I sound slimy when I say that? Because when people say, oh, I'm just going to wait, I'm like, wait for what? You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to wait for?
You know, the conversation. I'm very honest with you know, with my clients. I'm very open with them. I tell them absolutely whatever you're more comfortable with. Maybe there's other reasons that they can't buy, and I understand that, right? So we'll do whatever you need to do. But if it's about the rates and the payment, then I would always recommend. If it's just about the rates and the payment, then I would say, let's talk, you know. And again, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. People also just don't know. They have so many options when it comes to mortgages, right? Whether it's the different types, you know, FHA, VA, conventional. You know, people hear conventional like, oh, I don't have 20% to put down, but they don't know that they don't need 20% to put down, right? So, I mean, that part, they have to do the research and, you know, homework themselves to learn, but I would recommend that they do that.
Awesome. All right, last question is your personal question. And I don't want to do the money one. Nope, we're going to go to. If you could sit down and interview any person throughout history, alive or dead, for half an hour, who would it be, and what would the first question you would ask them be?
I was like talking. Now I have to like think.
Now you gotta think.
I gotta think about this.
Can be anyone. Famous, not famous.
Or dead.
Alive or dead.
Oh, anybody. It doesn't have to be like somebody famous.
No, it could be anybody. Yeah.
Well known. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it would be my maternal grandma.
Okay.
Only grandparent I never met.
Okay.
My mom and her were very close. I'm very close to my mom.
Okay.
And I would love to talk to her and just get to know her because I think it would just, be a huge reflection of my mom.
Complete that little.
Nice. Yeah, it would complete that little whole. I've met all my other grandparents except for her. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Raki, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Thank you so much. That'll be it for this week. We'll see you next week on Mr. Mortgage's Neighborhood.